Hello and many thanks for joining us on the program. I am Imonia Marere. The much anticipated and touted UN Summit on Climate Change, otherwise known as the Conference of the Parties, COP28, has come and gone. And for almost 2 weeks, government leaders, environmentalists, civil society activists, private sector stakeholders, and other critical stakeholders were in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, trying to hammer out an acceptable position on how to protect the global environment for the long-term benefit of humanity, as opposed to the short-term gains or comfort of a few, mostly in the industrialized developed world. In the end, some compromises were made to the satisfaction of some countries and to the chagrin and consternation of a few others who felt let down yet again. As has become usual, the Dubai COP session was pushed into overtime by marathon negotiations before an agreement on the future role of oil, gas, and coal was reached. The world agreed to a deal to transition to a transition from fossil energy, which has been described by some as historic and by others as a paradigm shift that can potentially redefine the economies of many countries. Yet, some climate advocates describe the agreement as one that is still far from sufficient to reflect the growing urgency of the climate crisis. Even as there was a major breakthrough on calls to end fossil fuels so as to achieve net zero by 2050, bitter differences still exist, especially on the tone or language of the agreement that calls on the countries to contribute to global efforts to reduce carbon pollution rather than the world phase out fossil fuels, oil and gas producing nations reportedly pushed back on such an extreme language. But several partners, especially small island developing nations, have expressed disappointment over the deal, which they say leaves the door wide open for fossil fuel expansion. There is also concern over a failure to secure enough funding for the poorest and most climate vulnerable countries to help with adaptation and move towards renewable energy. Now, a major success of COP28, however, was in the adoption of the Loss and Damage Fund, which has been in the making for decades. Although developed countries have since pledged 700 million US dollars, developing countries need up to about $387 billion a year to adapt and another $4.3 trillion each year to scale up renewable energy. Is COP28 the beginning of the end for fossil fuels? Is there a fast enough progress being made on climate action? Is the global community doing enough to save the world from the consequences of the climate crisis? What, in real terms, did Nigeria come away with from COP28? These are some of the issues we will be talking about on the program today. And, of course, we are being joined by some very prominent climate change experts and persons who should know. Of course, you recall that some time ago, before COP28, we did come here and we tried to preview what the conference is likely to look like and what decisions are likely to come out with. But now that COP is ended, It's time to do a look back, a review, and see what exactly took place in Dubai and what the gains have been for the global community and especially so for Nigeria, one country that currently depends so much on fossil fuels. Well, we'll be meeting our guests right after now. Let's get to hear some of the voices from COP28.
So small island states from whom we heard this morning a passionate call and with whom we met many times in New York and here, for them, this is an immediate crisis, not something down the road and in the future. So we will continue to press for a more rapid transition. But we have the United Nations COP process clearly on record now as demanding that we fully embrace that transition.
I think this is a global turning point. For the first time, the world is committing to transition away from fossil fuels. For the first time, there is a loss and damage fund to support the most vulnerable countries. So this has the potential to be the beginning of a new era, the post-fossil era. Let's celebrate this. Europe is at the forefront of it, investing in clean and homegrown energy for all. This is the right direction of travel.
We have now reached the end of our joint plenary meeting. Delegates, colleagues, and friends, I must say that you did it. You delivered.
President of COP28 saying there that delegates did it, they delivered. Now the big question is, what did they do and what did they deliver on? Right, I'm joining in the studio at this point in time the man who was with us here to help us preview COP28 is back here to do a review, and I'm talking of AVM Akugbe Iyamo. Thank you so much.
Having me, it's always a pleasure. So beautiful.
AVM Akugbe Iyamo is a climate change specialist. Well, we did invite the Director General, Climate Change Council of Nigeria, Salisu Dahiru. But just before we came into the studio, he sent word that he could not make it because he's been invited to the National Assembly to defend the council's budget. But we will be joined very shortly by Halima Imam, who is another climate change specialist. Thank you so much, Mr. AVM Iyamo, for joining us. Well, like I said before COP28, we were here to look at what would likely play out at COP28. COP28 is over with all the controversies over oil deals and no oil deals, large delegations or no large delegations, and what have you. Well, I'm sure that you have been monitoring the entire process. What are your thoughts on COP28? Let's begin from there.
Yes, thank you very much, Moni, for having me. And I want to actually commend your station, the chairman and the MD, your very good self, for taking a keen interest on this word, on environment. It's highly commendable, and we're trying to push it. You're pushing it out to the people out there to actually know what is happening. But they are the one causing it, not here. Having said that, now it was, if you look at the quickest movement of the IPCC and the UNFCCC for almost 3 decades, that culminated into this agreement, this consensus. Well, I was so excited. I was so excited that they could come to a consensus like this. You know, going forward from here, prior to it, it was very contentious. How, by November 21st, Robinson from Ireland asked the president of COP28 and said, "Are you standing against fossil fuel?" He said, "No, I don't have any signs or any scenario to show that fossil fuel is the cause of global climate changes." Yeah, that was science denying, and that was alarming. But they continue to move on. And you find out that against all the prostrate countries, including the UAE and the cartel, OPEC, they got this deal across. What does it show? That is, the bottom out of oil has come. It has come, and it has come to stay. What is now remaining is that, but I was very sad. You know why? My country,
Tell us.
Nigeria. Where do we stand in this? It's not a good news for us at all. It is not a good news for us at all. So we'll dwell into that. We going forward in a whole lot of things. We have not covered ourselves in glory, and now the bottom, the underbelly is going to be revealed in terms of finances, in terms of a whole lot of things. So that's where we are now. Then, in summary, it was a good development. Like there's an adage in Benin: you use little things to look for bigger things. So that the world came to it is a very good breakthrough. It's historic, it's monumental, and it's phenomenal.
Now, that again is where the challenge comes.
Yes.
Because there are those who say, look, this as historic as it seems,
Yeah.
this has not gone far enough. And they refer to the language of the agreement, which is to say, look, contribute to the elimination of pollution, of carbon pollution. Not that, look, get it out and maybe give a specified period to it to say fossil fuels must go between now and so time. It's a transition. And this is where those who are opposed to the final document that was signed say it does not go far enough. Do you think that there are merits and demerits in both arguments?
Yes. In any consensus, there will always be loopholes. There will always be loopholes. The giveaway that they brought is that, look, they want to say just, equitable, and orderly transition from fossil fuel. Then they are going to triple the production of renewable energy, going to double energy efficiency, recalibrate the national determined contribution, and also look at recommit to reducing emissions, and finally giving $700 million for those countries that are disproportionately affected by it. Don't forget, before now, they gave special drawing rights. Special drawing rights. What that means is that for countries like the vulnerable countries to be able to access this fund, when these funds were set up, these countries were not in existence. 1945, they were not in existence thereabout. So most of the clauses there and everything does not favor them. They also give it to the multilateral banks to be able to help now, which is you see, the road was being worked out. It was being worked out going there. So if you check the chronicle of what they have advanced to the world, we have to start from somewhere. That they agreed, a great prostrate nation. What's like they were resistance. They were resistant. Although the consensus did not acquit itself creditably enough to the world. But it is better than nothing. It was a good way to start. Like I said before, I just concerned about my country, Nigeria.
Now we'll come back to Nigeria and the implications of this agreement for Nigeria and how Nigeria is likely either to benefit from it or suffer from it. But for now, let's look at the general atmosphere that led to this agreement. There are those who still think that the world is not moving fast, making enough progress, it's not moving fast enough as far as climate action is concerned. Did COP28 give much hope in this, along this line?
Yes, initially, COP28 started very slowly. Very slowly. There were very divergent views and everything. The thing was that, will a consensus ever be reached? Very, very remarkably, the intersection at the end of the day was harmonized. And they got to this equitable, just, and orderly transition from fossil fuel. To use that word, it's very nice. Although they say it's a getaway sentence, but you don't know whether it's a getaway or not. Have you, in the last 3 decades, have you ever had that? No. But you see, it is not going to live without a fight. It is not going to live without a fight to leave fossil fuel, because fossil fuel is the energy of the world. It drives the whole world. People are still investing there. The developed countries are still investing there. They are looking for more money to look. They are looking for frontier. Sorry, they are even deploying frontier funds now to look for oil in non-traditional places. You get what I'm saying? The question now is, why is it very difficult? It was difficult because if you say transition to renewable energy, like say Nigeria now, where the on-grid that we have is about 10 megawatts that was commissioned by in February by the former president in Kabuso in Kano. The off-grid contribution is about 35,000 megawatts. You understand? So what are we going to do now? It's scary for countries like Nigeria and others. You see, whether or not we've started, if you are going to Kano and you are facing what was Kubwa, you are in direction. But if you are facing Mararaba, you are not going there. At least you have turned the vehicle now to be facing direction. Fossil fuel is irreversible and inevitable. The bottom out is here. Countries must prepare. The journey has started. Because if you look at the devastation on countries, which will you prefer? Which will you prefer? And over the years, it has been identified that this is the prime cause. Will you not rather take the bitter bill? You will, for the whole world to be safe. But you see, what I would have expected is, before COP28 started, it was to put people and livelihood, and nature in the heart of climate change. That is what we should continue to do. And now they should have front-loaded the consequences of climate change to smaller island states and other vulnerable countries, so that they understand what we are going to. But if you stay in Dubai and an entity is buying almost 20% of the forest in Africa, there's already a problem, because the fundamental antidote to climate change are the trees. So if you get in the forest takes substantial part of the carbon dioxide, take it away. You're going to take it now. The biodiversity is threatened. You see, the forest is very significant in the ecosystem. Your water system, your air, name it, health and everything there. What are you doing with 20%? What are you going to do with 20%? That's the size of the UK. To do what? So if we are moving in a direction to eliminate most of these things and agree that fossil fuel must go, we must also look for the entities that will help us capture this carbon. You know, again, too, you see, they were emphasizing carbon emission, technology for carbon emission reduction. Those are very expensive technology. That means you are taking it away from the developing countries. Why not develop the forest? Another one again, they were saying carbon capture. Where are they going to get money for carbon capture? So it is like taking with giving with the right hand and taking from the left hand.
Tell us more about carbon capture.
Yeah.
What exactly does carbon capture represent? What does it mean? What is the process? For the understanding of our viewers and for ordinary Nigerians who may not be very versed in the language of climate change and the environment.
Don't take your mind too far. Just like it implies, capture. You are taking it out from the atmosphere. It's a technology that will help you, or science-based, that will help you take over the carbon from the atmosphere. It's a technology that will help you do that.
And put where?
Well, I think, first of all, it's into the earth, which is not going to come out. And very well, I'm beginning to think that it could be converted to other materials.
Energy sources?
Yes, as science begin to evolve, you know, science is very transitory and very transformational. So that is it. But it's capital intensive. highly expensive. Yeah.
And who is going to pay for that? That is the big question.
That's the question.
Who pays for that?
That's the question. You see, it was canvassed at COP28. It didn't really gain traction because the developed country know that it's very expensive. It's very expensive because if you are canvassing that now, take for example, country like Nigeria, our budget is just 32.7 billion US dollars. From last year it was 43.6 or so. That's a depreciation. You have inflation rate of 27%.
28 now.
28
Last,
now. And an unemployment of 33%. Eh? And according to the World Bank, 85% of you have no access to electricity. So what are you going? Where are you going to get the money to do this? So it should not be brought to the situation where you are now contesting between poverty and fighting climate change. Both are existential. But it's not left for you to determine which one is more existential.
All right. Well, they talked about transition away from the fossil fuel
Yes.
For energy systems.
Yes.
But there are those who say that that transition away from the fossil fuel does not include transition from plastics, from transport, and from agriculture.
You see, when you want to be mischievous, you see, the whole source of everything is from the fossil fuel. By the catalytic process, you begin to get most of these things. At the catalytic temperature, everything begins to go out. See, what they are saying is that keep fossil fuel in the ground. Keep it in the ground. If it doesn't come out, where are you going to get plastics? No, where will you get plastics? It's not going to come out there. You see, what we should be talking about is the process that countries like Nigeria, they are running with now. CNG. CNG is basically methane, compressed to 1% of a standard temperature. Methane is, if you are extracting fossil fuel, is the first thing to come out. So those are the things that are there. Well, which, like I said, is the bottom out. It's irreversible and it's inevitable. We have to prepare for it.
Is 2050 a realistic target date for this to happen?
Yes, it's very realistic. Look, everything you have to do have to start with a plan. When you have a plan, you see, there is no need that cannot be compressed into a plan. And we have to get the whole world buy-in now. If there's commitment from the whole world, and like I said before, if we have front-loaded most of these consequences to the small island countries and those vulnerable countries, to say, look, you are better off, forget about the money that is coming in now. It's life first. You are better off if we take fossil fuel out. And they begin to have a relatable, actionable process towards 2050. It will be realized. It will be realized. Don't forget, the stopgap year is 2030. But as they were going in, they said, look, the amount of fossil fuel that is going to be pumped out by 2030 will be twice that will be necessary to keep temperature at 1.5. That's backed by the UN and the United Nations Environmental Program. It's backed by them. So there are a lot of conflicting angles to removing fossil fuel. But for carbon emission, you see, zero carbon and carbon neutrality, they are not the same thing. You are talking of carbon neutrality, you are talking of taking it out and evening it out. Zero emission, you are talking of materials that actually do not emit carbon. But what we're talking about is now carbon neutrality. That is possible. They are looking at the science very, very deeply. Now, it is the science that is going to rescue everybody. Science that is going to rescue everybody. Now, if you're also looking at science again too, you also have to look at the consequences. They already cry now, although very, very suboptimal, that the electric vehicle generate electromagnetic waves. Generate electromagnetic waves. So science is very consequential. It's very consequential. You see, if you want to have an exponential result, you must have an exponential planning. You must have in mind that it's very exponential. We're also looking at hydrogen vehicles. Hydrogen vehicle, I think by the last count in the world, you're having about 72,000. How do you get the hydrogen out? Using fossil fuel. The world has not gotten enough renewable energy to the extent that fossil fuel will actually go. So the transition, like I said before, is possible. It needs commitment. It needs sincerity to be able to get there.
All right. We have now been joined. I did tell you that Halima Imam will be joining us. Halima Imam is a climate change specialist. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having
Welcome.
me.
Were you in
Thank
Dubai?
you. No, I wasn't.
Oh, but you participated from home.
Yes, I did.
The way last year.
All right. So COP28, in your view, given what you know now of what happened in Dubai, did it meet your expectations? Does it meet the expectations of the global community in terms of having to ensure that the world does not suffer from the consequences of climate change?
Yeah, well, does it meet my expectations? Not really. Does it meet the expectation of the world in terms of the problem we have at hand, which is climate change? I doubt it. No, it doesn't. But then to a very large extent, we're not where we were some few years back. We're in a better place now. And then we're seeing that people are beginning to say, don't just make commitments. Don't just tell us you're going to do this. We don't want words anymore. Everybody has big words to throw around. What we want now is action. If you are going to say, I'm giving this particular amount to fund, for example, loss and damage, you should do it. And because after COP after COP after COP, we still keep seeing consequences of climate change. And nobody's really coming out to say, okay, we're ending this, we're starting this. It's more of just talk and talk and talk, people just throwing big words around and all of that. So I believe that it could be better, and with actions and more actions, with little actions here and there, we're definitely going to meet our goal. And then climate change is not something that we are expecting to be gone for good overnight. It's something we know that when we work on it, little steps are going to give big impacts, definitely. So my answer to that question is not really. And I doubt the world will say, yes, it meets our expectations too.
Now, put differently, do you see the kind of commitment that is required by the world to combat climate change making the necessary and significant progress?
Yeah, well, there's commitment. Yes, there is.
By all parties?
Well, not all parties. But then there's a very high level of commitment. Like I told you, we're not where we were before. You see that the big polluters are now understanding that people are more aware now. And people are demanding change. People are demanding it very, very vigorously now. So everybody's kind of a bit jittery. And then basically there's commitment here and there. But then is the commitment wholesome? Is it leading to action? Not really. It's not. So if it was leading to action and impact has been felt and a lot of changes have been made, I don't think we're going to be having this conversation today. We'll just be in our houses resting and happy that we have a future that is habitable, especially for the younger ones. So then...
now, one of the very first agreements or successes that was recorded at COP28 was the Loss and Damage Fund. Last year at COP28, there was so much talk and so much debate around it. But at COP28, we now have a Loss and Damage Fund.
Yeah.
But with $700 million pledged by the industrialized countries of the world, how far can that go in dealing with the loss and damage?
Well, we're going to have to look at the proportion of the loss and damage that has been suffered by the small island countries and most of the developing world, who are basically at the receiving end of the consequences of climate change. So then it's not about pledging. That's what I said before. It is about actually giving it, committing and doing the work. Because anybody could pledge. But then not everybody would fulfill the promise, obviously. So then I think that more should be done. I don't think that that amount is enough because we have lost lives, property, and then there is a lot of sustainability that has to be put in place for the environment to be able to, withhold the consequences of this climate change we're talking about, so that we don't have all of the consequences that we're suffering. So then, if these pledges are to be turned into actual giving, not just making pledges. Like I said before, anybody could come around and just use big words and call very big amounts and say, okay, we're going to give this to you, don't worry. But what's important to get the work done is you actually giving it, is you actually staying true and committed to your words. Action is what we need at this point in time. And it's not about people just coming out to say, I'm going to be giving this because yes, I know that I'm one of the big polluters and I'm going to definitely be helping you guys. And then we're still seeing year in, year out, very serious consequences of climate change in different countries in the developing world. So I don't think it's good enough. So they shouldn't just come to pledge the global north. What they should do is take action, give us these things and make sure that everything is put in place. The funds, obviously, we need them. And with the funds, we can actually put one or two things in place to make sure that the consequences of climate change will definitely be mitigated. So that's what we need. We don't just want pledges and all.
All right, we'll take a short break now. And when we return, we'll be coming back home to focus on Nigeria, Nigeria's participation at COP28 and what it came away with. Is it tangible enough? Did Nigeria get what it wanted? Or actually did it present its case in such a manner as to get the understanding and the buy-in of other COP delegates? Stay with us.
Of our dream, the Nigeria we need is the united, indissoluble, and cohesive Nigeria which guarantees equity, fairness, justice, and prosperity for its citizens. That is our focus on people, politics, and power. It is fresh, insightful, impactful. It's a must-watch. People, politics, and power on AIT. When the issues are critical, germane to Nigeria's democratic process.
Politicians can only be seen maybe on television by judges. They should not intermingle, because once you intermingle, then you destroy the systems.
When the personalities are big, important to national discourse.
When you reach certain stage in power and you demonstrate arrogance to the extreme, there's no other thing that will happen to you other than to fall.
When the developments are seemingly complex, confounding like a 1,000-piece jigsaw, that's when we require bold, sound, and analytical minds to help put the pieces together. Jigsaw with Benga Arileba, now showing Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. on AIT. Jigsaw, demystifying the issues.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. My guests on the program, Air Vice Marshal Akugbe Iyamu and Halima Imam, both of them climate change specialists. I will take in doing a review of COP28. Now, we have done some very general overview of what took place in COP28. Let's return home to Nigeria. Nigeria was a major participant at COP28, and of course, the decision, or rather the agreement to transition from fossil fuel is one that would directly impact a country like Nigeria, which is a major producer of fossil fuels in Africa. Now, so how is this likely to affect the economy of Nigeria? How is this likely to impact on the environment and the climate crisis in Nigeria? Evie Makube, let me come to you. That first question.
Yes, thank you. But before I go, just to support what Halima have said, this time around they've given a space to developing countries and vulnerable countries by special drawing rights to be able to access this fund. But like you said,
that's the loss and damage
the
fund.
loss and damage fund. But you have to understand what is loss and damage. That's what you should first of all ask. If you say loss, that is, you cannot replace it. That's like lives and everything. If you say damage, it can be brought back. That's what I thought Nigeria should have canvassed. 2022 flood, they say it's claimed to have cost about 7 trillion. That's about 8 billion US dollars or thereabout. Now, why are you going to get money to do that? People are still in IDP camps. I think that should have been canvassed strongly. Strongly. Again, too, you are canvassing the compressed natural gas. You've taken it everywhere. Why not expand the policy? Let everybody know the policy that you are doing, that you're going to do it. Now, science have said that it is not compatible with automatic transmission. So what are you doing with that? So those are the things that I felt Nigeria should have taken there. And you're also looking at your forest. Looking at your forest. You have one of the untouched forests in the world now, 4% of the world. So having said that, coming here, it is a sad commentary. Because, you know, we here are still waxing poetry. Oh, it will not happen. It's not going to happen. It's going to affect Nigeria in 2 channels. Revenue and our electricity. Revenue. 80%, 40 to 80% of what we draw comes from oil. That's virtually the only export we push to the world. It is going to affect the strength of our naira. It's going to affect our foreign exchange substantially. It's going to affect it. So I should have thought that the alarm bell would have rang yesterday. And the whole bureaucracy in Nigeria will be in an emergency mode, trying to address that. You know, if you look at it, although the transition period it might not be tomorrow or next tomorrow, but it's certainly going to come. Along the way that you are going to do it, you are going to have 1 or 2 bumps, here, boom here and there. You're going to have it, but that's not sufficient. For example, this year's budget was premised on 42% to be drawn from oil. The very challenging side now is that the international oil companies will start divesting from oil because the banks, their shareholders are going to say, no, you can't go there. You can't go there. And the environmental social group is going to start doing that. The funds will start drying out. The funds will start drying out, and they will start abandoning their facilities in areas of the country. What are we preparing for this? It's going to affect labor. It's going to affect poverty. I already gave you, if you are already having an inflation of 27%, you have an unemployment of 33%, you have global terrorism index in Africa, you are having 37 out of 44. Those are not very, very good figures. And you are having scarcity of oil for coming to join up. Again, you go to the energy mix. The world is already recalibrating their energy mix to move away from fossil fuel. If they do that, certainly if the pressure comes, it's going to come sooner than later. Our electricity, as small as it is 70% thermal, burning thermal, 70%. So what is going to happen? And you see, it is big investment. When these funds begin to dry, although some bigger countries will be able to go into other areas and go and invest in fossil fuel, but we are not in that category. And our oil behemoth is not in that category to do that. So what are we going to do? And by the last count, we have 37 billion barrels of oil, verifiable, and 208 trillion cubic feet of gas under the ground. As the time is now, why don't we begin to sow? To make haste while the sun shines. The sowing now, it is not business as usual. There's not going to be space for extract, share, and spend. No, extract, share, and spend, no. Yesterday, the day the announcement was made, I had goose pimples. I couldn't sleep.
Halima, did you sleep? Because from all indications, developing countries such as Nigeria, which is a major oil producer, at least on the African continent, depend on fossil fuels for the growth of the economy, for energy, and for jobs. What will a country like Nigeria do when you transition from fossil fuels to other sources?
Well, we're going to do what we have to do. What's very, very necessary to be done, which is we're going to have to start looking to renewable energy, for example, because we cannot say, okay, we are big exporters and we are heavily dependent on oil. So if this fossil fuel, which is oil,
where we are now.
yes, if it's gone now, are we all going to just sit at home and die of hunger? Or maybe our lives just end? Of course not. We're going to have to look to renewable energy to be able to provide whatever it is that fossil fuel was giving us in the past, as the case would be then. Because when you look at renewable energy, for example, even though some people argue that the amount of waste we have around now is not enough to be able to give us whatever fossil fuel is giving us right now in terms of renewable energy. But then we can start, just like he said, we can start and then see where it takes us. Because if you don't make plans and you're not futuristic in your thoughts when it comes to the environment and when it comes to our planet, it's us in big trouble tomorrow. So why don't we begin to now really diversify and put out the facts there for everyone to understand, and then lean very heavily towards renewable energy. That's what's going to help us. So then what I think is that we should now place all our efforts and our thoughts and our intellect, resources, everything heavily on renewable energy. That's what's going to help us, because obviously we are definitely going to be needing energy. We can't say that when, now that fossil fuel is gone, we're just going to stay in the dark and nothing is going to happen. And then looking at the fact that we are, to a very large extent, an economy of poor people, or a country where we have a lot of poor people, and then some people not even understanding the concept of fossil fuel or climate change. So awareness has to be out there, a lot of awareness, so that people understand that if you carpool, you're not going to die. And it is okay for 4 or 5 people to take one vehicle at the same time, so that we don't add to the CO2 emissions that is already out there. So basically, I think that leaning heavily on renewable energy is more than 50% our way out of fossil fuel right now.
We have such a short time within which to do so much, from the account that EVM Yamu has talked about. Such a short time, and it does not appear as if those concerned, particularly in government, are doing enough in terms of education and proactiveness to get us to where we should be when this begins to happen.
Well, definitely. You know, I always say that one problem that we have in this country is that people are not doing their jobs. Because if all of us were doing our jobs as a when due, I don't think we'll have a lot of the problems that we have right now. So yes, it's true that these guys are really not doing so much in terms of awareness creation, but I believe the collaboration is one way to go. So collaborating with people, individuals, organizations that are community-based is very, very important. Getting the message out there, making people understand that, okay, we're going to be transitioning, and it's not something that's going to kill all of you, don't worry. Well, it's going to take a toll on us for just a short while, and at the end of the day, this is the result we're expecting. Let people understand the end game. Let them know what they're going to be expecting. Let them understand the level of whatever it is that they're going to be going through for that period of transition. So if we have people in government, policymakers, and very important stakeholders putting this message out there and rallying around to get people to come together, when we collaborate with everyone, I believe that we're going to get it done, no matter how short the time is. Because definitely, going alone will take you far, but going together will take us much farther. So if the government can collaborate with NGOs and individuals and every other stakeholders, everyone, we're all stakeholders in this because it's our environment. So if we all can come together in a very important way to do the work together, transition together, get plastics from our oceans, clean up, try to make sure that we're able to, even in our own small ways, get energy from biodegradable and all of that. So it would really, really help us. Collaboration, in my opinion, is key.
AVM, if this agreement on fossil fuel is the beginning of the end of fossil fuels, what, in your view, or what steps do you think Nigeria can begin to take right now? What are those low-hanging fruits that we can begin to pluck in order to be on the right path to this transition?
Yes, I would like you to use the right word. Irreversible and inevitable. The bottom is out of fossil fuel. What do we begin to do now? A lot. A lot. Like Halima said, all the renewable energy sources have to be explored now, have to be explored and brought back to add value to where we're going. There have to be a deliberate effort now to go. Then two, we have to look at things like the participation in the just completed COP and the hunger. No, those kind of junketing is no longer possible. Everything now, we have to sow the seed. We have to sow the seed. The period remaining now, we still have, we have been doing between 1.1 and 1.4. Although at the optimal, we're doing about 2 million barrels a day. That's with the industrial oil theft and all. But now we are doing 1.4, 1.1, 1.2. That's still enough. That's still enough. We have to come in and close in. Remove all those externalities that is reducing the money and zero in on sowing the seed. Sowing the seed very, very well. Like she said, it is going to affect us. Like I already gave you two channels. Two channels. It's the era of saying, no, we're after all, we are contributing very little to climate change and all. No, where the big country is supposed to come and pay us. No. Everybody is passing through the same pain now. It's passing through the same pain, but they are looking for a whole development of it. And again, too, we have to look at the entire ecosystem of the oil management. One, collecting funds, future funds for bringing oil has to be reviewed. We have to constrict the circle now and begin to invest the money. Because if you don't have energy, you cannot move people out of poverty. You can't move people out of poverty. And we have to come back now, like she said, and talk to the people. Sensitization and mobilization is very, very important. We should have been doing this like 10 years ago and coming back. But you see, some people are still waxing poetically that no, it doesn't happen. If you see the way we are still behaving, as if, no, this money is going to continue to flow. No. Once the foreign, you see, the world moved away from Stone Age because the world didn't have any stone again. We are not going to move away from fossil fuel because there is no fossil fuel again. We are going to be forced to move away from it. It's a change of direction now, which the world is going to force you to do. The technology is coming in. They have to actually look at it. How do we get the Africans to buy into this technology? Once there's an evolving technology and the developed world is singing about it, better start thinking about it. Better start thinking about it. If I were there, if I appoint anybody into the bureaucracy, any high person, they have to read 2 books. 2 books. Third World to First World, and Why Nation Fail. You I will say, go and bring those 2 books. It must be in your office. You read it, because therein lies patriotism. Herein lies nationalism. Here lies economic development. Here is like you see creative destruction in the economy. Therein lies it. So you do a whole lot of things. If you don't read, you don't know. If you don't read, you don't know. Yes.
So, Halima, on a final note, I mean, fossil fuels, oil, gas, coal, majorly, are dying products. Now it is incumbent on every nation that depends on these fossil fuels to begin to rethink and redirect its resources in order. How do we get governments, and particularly so the Nigerian government, to think along that line? But it was on account of that that I actually invited the Director General of the Climate Change Council in Nigeria, who was always unable to make it to this program. I wanted him to tell us what government, what advice the council is giving to government, and what direction we should go.
Okay, so yes, the government can look at it from many angles, and definitely the government has a lot of resources at their disposal to make it happen. So first of all, I think that just like we say, we've been talking about, and like we say all the time, transitioning from this to that. Let the government get it right. We're moving from here to here. And we are not going to say, just like AVM said, we're not leaving because this is done and it's no longer available. We have to leave because this is killing us, and it is making sure that we're going to wake up dead tomorrow. So we're definitely going to have to move. The government has to understand that, and the government have to know that one of their responsibilities is making sure that our well-being is taken care of. We've given them our sovereignty collectively. It is now their turn to take care of us. So if this is going to kill us, the government have to take it seriously. I don't think we have to begin to drum it into the ears of the government. Climate change is real, and this is bad, and this is bad. I think it is shameful for people to have to do that. The government is supposed to hide their face. Or not just the Nigerian government, but governments of the world. So it is something that they already know. They understand. It's not that hard to understand. So transitioning is very, very important. And also, like I said before, making it making intentional moves to now leave from fossil fuel to renewable energy is really, really going to help us. Creating a lot of awareness, getting the people to key in, because we are the human resources. So getting the people to key in to say, okay, this is not what we are going to be doing anymore. It's not business as usual anymore. So this is what we are now going to be doing. Let us take small steps from, and then even making it part of the school curriculum, because I am a teacher, and then I always work with my students who are girls to be able to see that we do a lot of community awareness and advocacy on climate change. So if this is put into the curriculum for students, we're able to catch them young, and we're able to understand that if any society, trains the younger ones to understand its problem, it would definitely be solved. There's a future for it.
In any case, it is their future that we are beginning to plan today. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
AVM Akugbe Yamu is a climate change specialist. He joined us to preview COP28 and is here again to do a review of what we came home with from COP28. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
And Halima Imam, she says she's a teacher, but has demonstrated a whole lot of knowledge about climate change crises and issues. So we are right to call her a climate change specialist. Thank you so much for your time.
Having me, sir.
All right, so that's our program for today. Well, we promise you that we'll keep a tab on how Nigeria progresses with this whole issue of transitioning from fossil fuel to other sources of energy. And of course, how that transition is likely to impact our economy or potentially impact our economy, our energy mix, and jobs in Nigeria. Thank you for investing your time with us. Bye for now.